The Ukraine Airlines crash outside of Tehran. Most Western leaders are unanimous in their assessment that missiles launched in Iran brought down the doomed plane. But today, Tehran is demanding proof. CBS transportation correspondent Kris Van Cleave has been all over this story. Kris, good morning. If these intelligence assessments are true, how could something like this happen? My first question was, why were planes, commercial planes, even flying?
Well, good morning. The airspace was open, so planes were coming and going, and it appears this was a horrific mistake at a time when tensions were high and the Iranian military was on high alert. But certainly there are questions. I want to show you this from Flight Radar 24, which tracks airline travel. They noted 9 other flights left that airport the morning before the shootdown. Nearly all of them, as you can see, are following the same flight path as Flight 752.
A security camera captured these dramatic images of the burning wreckage from Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 raining down. The plane, headed to Kiev, was identifying itself as a commercial airliner and was flying away from the conflict zone. But CBS News has learned as the Boeing 737 climbed after takeoff from Tehran's airport Wednesday morning, U.S. intelligence picked up signals of Iranian radar locking onto the plane. U.S. satellites detected 2 surface-to-air missiles being launched, followed by an explosion. This new video shows the moment of impact. Other videos show the burning plane as it comes crashing down in a ball of fire. Federal officials briefed on the intel say pieces of the missiles, like these posted to social media, appeared to have been found near the crash scene. President Trump as the news broke.
It was flying in a pretty rough neighborhood, and somebody could have made a mistake.
Sources say the president worried about this exact scenario, specifically asking about passenger planes flying over Iran in the days leading up to the shootdown.
There's no absolute precision when things start happening in combat.
Retired naval captain Lawrence Brennan worked on a similar investigation in 1988 after a U.S. naval warship mistakenly shot down an Iran air flight, killing 290.
If there are going to be hostilities near commercial aircraft, there have to be warnings, and aircraft have to be compelled to avoid danger zones.
All right, so the plane was a scheduled civilian airliner flying out of the capital's international airport, even in the fog of war. How could this happen?
Well, you know, experts we talked to said that besides the fact the plane was identifying itself as a commercial airliner, like we said, and besides the fact that it was flying away from the conflict zone, as we've reported, the radar operator who essentially lit up that plane, targeted that plane, should have been able to see that it originated from the airport. And those experts we talked to said that's the point where common sense should have kicked in. But these sort of circumstances where a commercial airliner has been mistakenly targeted, it's happened before. You heard the U.S. Shot down mistakenly an Iranian plane in the 80s. You had the Malaysian air flight, MH17, that was shot down over Ukraine just a few years ago. So it does happen, even if there's not a good explanation for how that kind of mistake can get made.
So, Kris, when you first started to talk about this crash with us, you know, one of the things that you talked about was the difficulty of the location, that we're talking about a country that is not always transparent, not to people outside of the country, certainly not to people even within the country. So this is going to be a long, drawn-out investigation. Is there any way to ensure that Iran is going to be completely transparent?
No.
Yeah.
There's really not. I mean, Iran is in charge of this investigation under the way the international agreement goes. As Liz Palmer has reported, the crash scene appears to have been cleared. That's really unusual. I mean, think back to any aviation accident we have covered over the years. You never see the NTSB or any of the other accident agencies come in and clear the scene within a couple of days of the crash. It doesn't happen. What that makes it harder to do now is have any of the other parties go and look at the wreckage and know that they're seeing the totality of it. By removing it, you don't know what's happened to it. You don't know if you're looking at the whole puzzle, and that certainly raises some questions about how open and fair this investigation will be. You know, the Iranians are asking for the West to share its intel that led the U.S. to this conclusion. The U.S. has shared that intel with Ukraine, with Canada, with the U.K., Australia, New Zealand, and we've seen the Prime Minister of the U.K., Boris Johnson, come out and say it appears it was a missile strike. You saw Prime Minister Trudeau come out and say it appeared to be a missile strike. So whatever the intelligence is, as we have reported, it is clear enough that it is leading leaders of many countries to believe this was a missile strike.
I was going to ask you, I don't know if you even have the answer to this, is what type of intelligence could outside countries have? They're sort of viewing this from a distance.
Well, the U.S. and other countries operate satellites. Certainly there would have been a lot of attention on Iran when this happened. Remember, this was just a few hours after Iran had launched a barrage of missiles at 2 bases in Iraq that housed U.S. troops. It was as the world was sort of holding its breath, waiting to see if the U.S. would respond, would have a military response. So certainly there were U.S. Spy satellites, U.S. assets looking at Iran, and presumably other countries were as well.
All right, Kris Van Cleave, thank you so much.
Sure thing.